How are you, everyone? Jeff Johnson, along with my compadre, KJ Pilcher. We are here to speak some high school football. Another edition of the Prep Huddle Prep Football Podcast. I got that out without stuttering or anything, which is good. So we are through 2 rounds of the playoffs in the small classes, 1 round in the big classes. We're just going to kind of take you through last week's games, maybe give you some thoughts on our thoughts on things that went down, and then kind of a look ahead to the next round. Here we are 1 round away from being in the UNI-Dome, which will be nice because last week was a little frigid.
72 and sun, yeah, 72 and sunny here going forward after this week.
That's right, and no wind. Welcome to the
Yep.
dome. So, but I think tomorrow night, Friday night, we're taping this on Thursday. It looks, fairly promising. So it's good. The last outdoor games of the season for everyone. So let's get right to it, Pilch. Let's go 5A. Run through the scores real quick. The round of 16. Pod A, Southeast Polk beat Limar 49-9. Cedar Falls rallied to beat Cedar Rapids Kennedy 30-26. Pod B, Dowling, West Des Moines beat Sioux City East 45-0. Ankeny over Johnston 21-9. Pod C, West Des Moines Valley goes all the way over to Pleasant Valley again and picks up a win 31-21. Waukee beat Cedar Rapids Prairie 21-10. Pod D, Bettendorf turned the tables on Iowa City High 32-21. And then Ankeny Centennial, probably the biggest surprise of the first round, knocking off top seeded Waukee Northwest 35-7. Pilch, let's talk about that Pod A. I guess no surprise. Linmar, which dealt with so many key injuries this season, loses Southeast Polk, and then Cedar Falls beats Kennedy for the second time in 3 weeks, which got to give the Tigers props, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the third straight time, all three at the Unidome, that Cedar Falls has edged Kennedy. Um, you know, all three have come down to the fourth quarter, and Cedar Falls able to come away with a win. Really, I thought this was Kennedy's opportunity um, to come away with a win there. But you got to give Cedar Falls credit. They kind of had a little bit of a slow start to the season, but they've slowly, kind of built and improved each week. They're 7-3 now and have a big task against Southeast Polk, but it's not easy beating a team twice in 3 weeks. Nevertheless, 3 straight times, especially when it's a quality program like Kennedy, and the Tigers able to gut this one out.
I don't know if Kennedy's gonna kind of play the regret card here with you look at 3 of the 4 losses were literally one possession type of deals where they literally on one play away from winning 3 more games. Finish 6-4 with a pretty talented team. I'm sure that hurts, right? So close, but yet
Oh,
so far.
of course, because the thing with close losses is you could go through your mind and pick out 20 different things and play the what if game, right? Um, you could sit there and go, what if we would have done this, or what if we would have called this, or if only we would have gotten a stop here. Being that close, you can rue over a dozen different choices or plays. When it's a blowout, um, or you're not really in the game, you just have to kind of shrug your shoulders and move on because blowout. There's not a lot you can do. It's not one thing that's going to turn stuff around. Uh, but games like this that Kennedy's had against Cedar Falls, Cedar Falls scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter and 20 of their 30 after halftime. That's not going to sit well, and that'll lead to some teeth grinding over the off season.
What did you think? City High had a tough task. I think we all kind of knew it. Going back down to Bettendorf after picking up a 41-21 win in the regular season last week or the week before, 2 weeks ago, however you want to phrase it. The old axiom, man, it's hard to beat the same team twice, let alone having to play them in back-to-back weeks on the road. This time a 42-21 loss or a win for City High 2 weeks ago, 32-21 this time for Bettendorf. That's I have that right. Just it was a tough situation, kind of like what Prairie and Limar last year, right? Same
Yeah,
exact
yeah,
deal.
we saw that. I mean, I think it was kind of a similar scenario where the team that won week 9 lost in the first round, and just kind of looking at some of the numbers, you kind of scratch your head a little bit. Um, when you look at totals, but Bettendorf able to run for 268 yards,
Yeah.
held Iowa City High under 100 yards, which that's Bettendorf football, right?
Yep.
Uh, you know, pound the ball. Gavin Barta had 118 yards and a touchdown. Um, they only pass for 42, but you don't need to, especially the style that Bettendorf plays and has been known for. That tough ground and pound kind of game, and you know that that really carried them through. And you got to applaud. City High Bobby Bacon had a great game, 306 yards, um, passing and a couple touchdowns. Uh, but I it really was a difference with the run game compared to the week before. Um, that really tilted in Bettendorf's favor and was the difference this time around.
Yeah. Bettendorf had 121 yards on the ground in the regular season finale. So, coaches
Big
must have found a
difference.
little something there, a little change, maybe in a blocking scheme, or maybe it's just challenging your offensive line. Hey, let's friggin' go. We're gonna ride you this week. So, um,
Or just throwing this out there. Maybe there is some forethought in we're gonna we're more than likely, regardless of how the outcome is, we're gonna see this team back to back weeks again if the RPI shakes out how they thought, and maybe they left a few cards on the table so that they didn't
yep,
kind of tilt their hand um, for City High for a set, back to back games.
yep.
Not
That's a
saying
great.
coaches would do that, but
Good
you
ones
know,
would, right? I mean, that's just sound
maybe
strategy. You
yeah,
know.
just why let them get a look under the hood when you can kind of keep some things to yourself. And if you were thinking ahead that hey, we're going to see these guys 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you know, it worked out for Bendorf, and of course now they've got Ankeny Centennial. Centennial, I think, is not your. I don't think it was your prototypical 5-4
Sure.
team. Um, that's a pretty talented squad with Centennial, and that's going to be a good game. But Bettendorf certainly uh, big opportunity for them to get back to the UNI-Dome.
Well, let's see. We're down to what Cedar Falls and Bettendorf on this side of the state. Otherwise, it's the same old story, Pilch.
And look at what West Des Moines
People.
Valley did. You
Yeah.
know, to come over here and knock off one of the top 3 or 4, actually probably record wise or yeah, record wise, the top Eastern Iowa team. Here comes Valley for the second straight year, 4-5, taking them down. So, as much as the success in the UNI-Dome that shows the imbalance with Central Iowa and Eastern Iowa, I think that's indicative of the difference as well. That a team like that can kind of survive their regular season schedule in Central Iowa and then come out over to Eastern Iowa and knock off one of the top teams record wise, that just shows how strong Central Iowa is compared to this side of the state.
Man, I look at I was just looking at the stats of that Valley Pleasant Valley game. Pilch was Valley had, let's see, 247 total yards. Pleasant Valley rushed for 282.
Really?
Yeah. And still you know, Valley was able to find a way to win. Big kick return, 100-yarder for 99 yards, I guess, for touchdown was a huge part that game, I think, for Valley, and being able to to pick up, like you said, back-to-back years, an upset, I guess, on at least on paper, over a good Pleasant Valley team. So Class 4A, let's run through the scores real quick. Then we'll have Pilch talk about what he saw over at Saints Field, on the campus of Cedar Rapids Xavier. Pod A, Western Dubuque over Newton, 41-2. North Scott beat Decorah 35-7. Pod B was Lewis Central Council Bluffs over Lamar's 42-10. ADM shut out Denison Schleswig 42-0. Pod C, Glenwood over Norwalk 21-0. Bondurant Farrar vanquished Pella 23-6. And then Pod D, North Polk got past Huxley Ballard 17-14. And somehow, some way, Cedar Rapids Xavier knocks off Indianola 17-10. And I'm going to let you talk about what you saw, because it was something.
Boy, I tell you, it was um we've all been in the situation, right? Where you're writing your story and you pretty much have a feel of how things are gonna uh end up, and
Yeah,
then at the last minute you've got to tear it up and let's start over, right? That was the situation. Um I was in Friday. You know, Indianola was in really Indianola was in charge, in control for all but maybe 6 minutes of that game. And it wasn't, Xavier was able to drive the ball, but Indianola had that kind of cliched bend but don't break
sure.
defense. Xavier would drive into their territory, but they just weren't able to get points um, on the board. They got a field goal their first drive when they started on Indianola's side of the field. Wynn played havoc with some punts. That worked out early, but then there were some weird bounces that seemed to go Indianola's way. Where the second time Xavier lined up for a field goal, uh, it got blocked, and then right before the half, um, Indianola had gotten a touchdown pass, so they were up 7-3 already. But right before the half, um, they caught like a 2 yard pass. It was tipped, and somehow Indianola receiver made a diving catch, and you think, oh, 2 yards, big deal. But the next play was, I want to say a 45-yard field goal, maybe. I'd have to look and double check for sure, but um, it hits the crossbar and then bounces over. So Indianola goes up, 10-3 at the half, um, because of that bounce. Xavier again drives in the Indianola territory, but just can't seem to finish. They had a couple uh, opportunities. Looked like Ronan Thomas hit Quinn Olson in the back corner of the end zone. It was ruled incomplete. I'm not sure. It looked like they ruled him out of bounds, but then it might have been, called a trap when he went to the ground with the ball. They got knocked loose a little bit. So it was incomplete. That prevented them from tying it. And then Noah Schimberg, who rushed for like 130 yards, and was a real durable back for them all game. He runs for a touchdown. That gets called back because of illegal formation. So there's a lot of crazy elements to this game, and it boiled down to like the last 4 minutes. Indianola's up 10-3, nothing to change from, that fluky uh, field goal at the end of the first half that bounced over. And then finally, Xavier closes one out. Ronan Thomas scores from, I think, 1 or 2 yards out. Saints are lined up for a PAT to tie it 10-10 with about 4 minutes to go, 4:25 to go. And it hits off the right upright and bounces away. So it's 10-9 Indianola. And as Dwayne Schulte kind of described all the craziness, he goes, yeah, their doink goes in, our doink goes out, which I thought was kind of funny, the way he described it. But, you know, uh, Xavier got the ball back. Their defense did a great job in the second half, shutting Indianola out. But then, again, more craziness. Xavier gets the ball back deep in their own territory, incomplete pass, and then Ronan Thomas is being pulled down outside the tackle box, uh, kind of tosses a pass, incomplete. After some discussion, they ruled it intentional grounding. So that moved Xavier back. And then a sideline, unsportsmanlike conduct on the sideline, arguing that call put them, it was like 3rd and 27 from their 9, I think. And that's not where you want to be. So you're sitting there thinking, okay, this is done. Because they're inside about 2 minutes now. But on Thomas with a 1 yard run, and then on 4th and 26, he hits Carter Hoffman for a first down. Indianola really kind of dropping back and shifting to the other side of the field, and Thomas was able to roll out. Hoffman did a nice job coming back a little bit, wide open. They convert the first down. Then I think there's another big pass play to Colton Beasler Weber. Um, and then Xavier inside the 5 with 31 seconds left, I think from 3 yards out. Thomas hit a little pop pass to Quinn Olson for the winning touchdown. And of course, those two hooked up for the 2-point conversion that put them up 17-10, and they were able to move on. The interesting thing I thought about some of the things that kind of ended the game, that was Quinn Olson's first touchdown pass. He had been injured earlier. I know they were expecting some big things out of him maybe this year, but he had some injuries. That was his first touchdown, and I think maybe just his second catch of the season. And then he also adds the 2-point conversion. Adam Cook with an interception on Indianola's final drive to seal it. That was his first interception, I think, of his varsity career. So Xavier, really wild and crazy game that they were able to come through. And now they've got North Polk, who beat Ballard 17-14, and Xavier's on the road. So things are going to get a lot tougher and more challenging over at North Polk. But Xavier really won a classic there, being able to finish late.
We'll look at the next round here. Pilch, we've got the anticipated, I guess, North Scott Western Dubuque game Friday night up at Epworth, and then Xavier at North Polk as well. So I'm telling you, you got to slay the giant, and Xavier to me is the giant in 4A. It has been here for a little bit, and they're still kicking, man. And you win. Sometimes you got to win a game like they won Friday night over Indianola to win a state championship, right? So don't put anything past them, I guess. What do you think about North Scott Western Dubuque, just off the cuff?
Oh, I think that could be that could be the game, the quarterfinals in 4A.
Yeah.
Really, you think Girardi. Is it Girardi or Girardi?
Girardi. Yeah, he's back.
Girardi,
Yep.
okay.
Tyler. Yep.
I knew I'd probably call them both by the time we were done anyway. But yeah, you look at him being back for North Scott, that's a huge boost. I think it was 31-24 when they met in the regular season. Grant Glouser had a huge game um, for the Bobcats. I think 389 yards and 4 touchdowns in that meeting. So obviously that's going to be the focus for North Scott. You've got to be able to find a way to slow down Grant Glouser in Western Dubuque. That's easier said than done with Western Dubuque's line and Gloucester's ability to run. But I think you're going to look at two defenses trying to shut down those two playmakers between
Yeah.
Girardi and Glouser, and whoever does a better job is going to come away with a win. And Western Dubuque has been pretty darn good. Being at home, I kind of like their chances to get a second straight win and get back to the dome.
Let's look at Class 3A. Your route of 16, Pod A, Creston got past Harlan in the rematch, 35-27. Webster City beat Nevada 27-7. Pod B, Solon, as expected, no problem with Fort Madison, 50-7. West Delaware in an 8-man type or 8-player type game beats Davenport Assumption 58-45. Pod C, Williamsburg shuts out Humboldt 23-0. Mount Vernon all over Independence 50-6. Pod D, Sioux Center gets past Algona 28-21. Sioux City Healing over Clear Lake 22-19. I'll speak just real quick on the game I was at, which was Mount Vernon Independence. Mount Vernon looked really, really good. To knock off a good Independence team and not just knock them off, but dominate them really was a very impressive performance. Joey Romberg accounted for 5 touchdowns running and throwing. Obviously, he's a tremendous player, and really looking forward to that game against Williamsburg here and on Friday night in the round of 8. And then Pilch, what an unbelievable performance from Brent Yakovic of West Delaware, a young man that from the wrestling mat in particular.
Yeah.
He went off. Did he count for 7 touchdowns? Is that right for the Hawks in that win over
Yes.
Assumption? Dang.
Yep. 7 touchdowns, 5 rushing, 2 passing. I think he had 490 total yards of offense. That put him over 2,600 um, for the season. But yeah, huge. He is that prototypical the straw that that stirs the iced tea, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
he's the guy that everything kind of goes through for West Delaware. Obviously, uh, they've really progressed up front on the offensive line and defensively throughout the year. And this is something the Solon guys talked about, just how much Yankovic's a game changer. And, Solon isn't taking this lightly. They know exactly what they're facing with him as a dual threat. So, talking to Brett White, Ben Campman from Solon about this matchup, they know what Yankovic brings. It's somebody that is quick and tough, um, runs the ball really well, and he's really improved as a passer as well. So, uh, they've got their hands full, but he also has a tough challenge in front of him with that Solon defense, who I think really has kind of carried Solon for the most part, even though the game against Fort Madison, the offense really shined, winning 50-7 there. Um, but I think we're going to see a really interesting battle between what Solon does to try to neutralize Yankovic and what Yankovic's going to be able to do, and maybe distribute the ball even a little bit if they're keen on him too much.
Then we look at that Mount Vernon Williamsburg game, which will be at Williamsburg. Both teams, the loss for each this season has been to Solon.
Right.
21-14 Williamsburg, 37-20 Mount Vernon. Um, what do you got? What do you think here? Uh, in this game,
Boy,
KJ.
I don't know. You've got some tremendous playmakers on both sides of the ball. Um, you look at these two teams as defenses. It's amazing how similar they are, maybe in different facets, but really dominant. Mount Vernon leads 3A, and I think the entire state with 58 sacks. Williamsburg's number two, but they're 20 and a half sacks behind. Um, then they're both tied for third with interceptions, 14 interceptions. Um, and then they're like first and third in points allowed, with Mount Vernon leading 3A at 9.7 points a game, and the Raiders are third at 12.4. Um, and offensively, you mentioned Joey Romberg, and then you look on the other side, you've got Derek Weisskopf and Clayton Steckley, Weejan, Race Heitman, uh, all those weapons. Uh, Kellen Cockrell ranks among 3A's best in passing touchdowns, and he's been hurt part of the season. So
Hmm?
imagine what it would be if he'd been healthy. But you know, Romberg does such a great job passing the ball around. He's got Evan Brazzi as his top target, and I mean, man, this is going to be an exciting game. It's going to be fun to watch, and I think is the number one quarterfinal, regardless of class.
The
And
other
I'm not
quarter,
picking a winner. I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
the other quarterfinals, real quick. Webster City at Creston, and then Sioux Center will host Heelan, which I don't know if that was necessarily a surprise beating Clear Lake. I think they were two pretty evenly matched teams. So,
Mhm.
Class 2A, we look at the round of 16 Pod A. Central Lion George Little Rock, no problem with Rolling Story, 49-0. Carroll Kemper, no problem with Clarinda, 43-8. Pod B, Van Meter beat LaPorte City Union 56-0. Prairie City Monroe 36-0 over Mid Prairie. Pod C, West Lion gets past Western Christian 29-20. Spirit Lake over New Hampton 48-6. And then Pod D, we had Mediapolis shutting out Comanche 27-0. Monticello 45-0 over Jessup. So the winners there in each pod will play. For our area purposes, Monticello makes the long trip down to Mediapolis in the round of 8 on Friday night. I don't know how they determine who was it an alphabet thing, KJ?
I
With that?
that I don't know. That's where we
The
need
whole
Linder
thing?
here to kind of iron out that second round hosting, because there were a couple things that kind of threw me off a little bit too, especially in 2A. Not only is it Monticello, Minneapolis, but look at Van Meter and West Lyon both hitting the road too.
Yeah.
So that's where Lindy comes in and helps us out with those um with those things, because that's a little bit of a head scratcher, with three of your top four ranked teams playing road games to get to the dome.
That might be, I'm just hypothesizing here. It must be an alphabet thing. All the teams that we were talking about here were district champs. So instead of, and they don't have RPI, at 2A on down. So it must
Right.
just simply be a first alphabet type of a deal as far as
and,
who hosts
and
these
that
games.
makes sense because the teams that are hosting are
First in the
first
alphabet.
off the yeah.
Monticello, I like Monticello over Mediapolis. In an attempt to get to the dome. KJ, what do you think? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that it's going to depend on how big Preston Reese's shoulders are. He does have a nice supporting cast, but you know he he's the guy that really sets the tone for Monticello offensively and defensively. I think that gets overlooked a lot, even though his performance against Jessup allowed him to set the all-time record for yards from scrimmage. which is passing and rushing yardage, where he sits at 12,052 now in his career. He's got 35-33 for this season. Almost 2,000 yards passing and 49 TDs. Um,
When
he's a difference maker. Can Mediapolis limit what he can do and shut him down? We'll see. A lot of that might come from what they're able to do offensively. Jackson Hutchinson leads him in rushing with 1,096 yards, 21 touchdowns. Maybe their best defense is a ball control offense.
sure.
We'll see. Um, but I still think Monticello is going to get back to the. I think this would be their first trip to the dome. I think
To
they've
the
been in the
dome. Yeah.
semifinals, but I think it was like in
Long time ago.
'77. You know, yeah,
Yeah.
before they played in the dome. So
And I believe Preston Reese went past some kid named DeGene for all time yardage, right? Wasn't it
was
some
it was it Hunter Deckers?
was it Hunter Deckers? Well, either way.
Either way, yeah.
Let's look at Class 1A. Your Pot A, round of 16, Grundy Center and Dyke New Hartford were your winners. Grundy over Pella Christian 35-12. And Dyke New Hartford beats Sigourney Kyoto 28-18, ending the Savage Cobras a fine season, another fine season. Pod B Underwood over AHSTW 42-0, and OABCIG beats Trainer 35-14, which means we will not have the dream matchup between AHSTW and OABCIG, unfortunately. Pod C, Summerburg gets past Emmitsburg, 9-7, Waterloo Columbus with maybe a bit of surprise, knocking off South Hamilton 35-24. And then Pod D, MFL Marmac shuts out West Branch 21-0. Iowa City Regina over Wilton 33-18, which sets up the Regals heading north up to Monona to play MFL Marmac in Friday's round of 8. KJ, it'll be a totally different offense that the Bulldogs will be seeing here from what they saw against West Branch.
Yeah,
I'm guessing Regina's going to maybe want to fling that football around a little bit through the air, huh?
yeah. That's they're going to air it out, and they're Gentry, Dumont, Jackson, uh, Nave. They've been one of the top passing combos all year long. Um, Dumont's second in 1A with over 2,200 yards passing. Um, Nave has had about a third of that, 837 yards. Um, the thing I think is interesting here is the difference in the two programs. MFL Marmac, this is just their sixth playoff appearance. Um, and I think maybe their fifth straight, and that's as many uh, championships as Regina has, right? I think they
Yeah.
have more championships than MFL has playoff appearances. Um, but I think it's these two teams met 2 years ago in the second round in the 2021 playoffs, and MFL Marmac won 21-7. Obviously, two different teams, but um, you know, again, like we said with Mediapolis, MFL Marmac's going to run the ball. They can pass it, but that's a run oriented offense. Um, if they can run the ball effectively, it's going to keep that Regina offense that can put up a lot of points on the bench. And you know, uh, MFL does have a good defensive front um, that can put some pressure on people, and we've seen them get some turnovers. And they have 21 sacks this season, 19 turnovers overall. We'll see if they'll be able to do that against the Regals. They're going to need to.
Yeah, like you said, there's no secrets here. Is what the teams are going to do offensively, want to do because it's what they do. And this will be the fifth straight year in the quarterfinals for MFL Marmac, and
Mhm.
we talked about what an unbelievable job Dan Anderson's done there, turning around a program that had no success historically. They want to get, the Bulldogs want to finally get that, want to get to the dome, you
Right.
know, for the
They're
first
really
time.
close last year.
Yep.
They've had teams that were semifinal caliber teams,
Yep.
just weren't able to kind of get over the hump in the postseason, and we'll see if this is their shot. This is
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
chance.
Which, like you said, Regina is, almost kind of a birthright type of a deal to go to the UNI-Dome against a school that, is just doing everything it can to finally get to the UNI-Dome. So a
Mhm.
lot of subplots, in that game Friday night. Let's look at Class A, Pod A quarterfinals. St. Ansgar shut out Lake Mills 33-0. East Buchanan over Lisbon 38-7. Lions only lost this season. Great job by everybody over there. Pod B, Woodbury Central got past MMCRU 35-28. I guess there was a potential tying touchdown patch in the back of the end zone that was, after consultation between a couple officials, was ruled incomplete. And that was the
Oh,
end of that game. So, and then Logan Magnolia gets past Akron Westfield 22-16. Pod C, West Hancock all over Starmont 49-10. Wapsie Valley shuts out Macocata Valley 26-0. And then Pod D, Madrid 2-0 over Central Decatur. And Adair Casey Guthrie Center beats Linville Sully 29-8. No real surprises, right, Pilch, here? I mean, we kind of figured East Buchanan might get Lisbon, and it did.
mhm.
We knew Starmont was in for a tough go, and it was.
Right.
Um, and Wapsie Valley has played great defense all year, shuts down, Macocata Valley, and anything, in this class that stood out to you.
I think what you just mentioned with Wapsie Valley, we knew their defense was good, right? We've seen the
Yeah,
shutouts throughout the regular season, but Macocata Valley had such a they've had have such dynamic players like McShane, um, Lance McShane. For Wapsie Valley to shut out that surprised me a little bit and really kind of opened my eyes. And boy, that's going to be a heck of a game, um, in that quarterfinal between West Hancock, um, at Wapsie Valley.
yeah,
That defense really to shut out Macocata Valley. I think that was an eye opener, for me. Not knowing the specifics if everybody was healthy or whatever, but just that shutout. Not that Wapsie won, just the way that they won was the only real surprise.
and looking at the stats from this game makes me believe that and I apologize for not knowing this. Lance McShane must have gotten hurt because he had only two
Okay,
tackles in the game and he had 5 carries for 16 yards.
okay, so
Um,
that explains a little bit then of why that result was the way it was, but
yeah,
still.
yeah, exactly. And what do you got over under on game time for East Buchanan and St. Ansgar? Hour and a half.
I say an hour and 43 minutes. Um, but I was surprised by the number of times St. Ansgar has actually thrown the ball this year. I think Jay Schweisow, um, the quarterback there, is thrown for over 1,000 yards. So,
Is that
um,
right? Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I was really surprised. But when you look at it, so I went through and counted up. Um, these two teams, East Buck and St. Ansgar, they've combined for 5,414 yards on 770 rushes this year. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, they have combined for 1,142 yards on 125 or 128 completions, but that's still, the balance is heavily tilted towards a lot of rushes this Friday. But maybe that how many times have you seen the one big pass play really make a difference in games, uh, matchups that are like this? And maybe that'll be the case on Friday.
All right, eight player, which actually will be played in the next round here. The quarterfinals will be played tomorrow night because I believe they're up first in the Unidome on Wednesday. Does that sound right, KJ?
Yep.
I think. Um, the round of 16, Pod A, Winfield Mount Union beat Moravia 34-6. Don Bosco gets past Waco 28-20. Pod B, Bedford over Exira EHK 44-28. Lennox beat Audubon 33-8. Pod C, Cam and Nita gets past West Bend Mallard 36-34. Algona Garrigan with the big upset, knocking off defending champ, previously undefeated Remsen St. Mary's 21-18. Pod D, Clarksville over Iowa Valley 50-8, and Gladbrook Rhinebeck. And another great season for Central City with a 36-12 win. Um, thoughts on Class A, the big upset, right? Remsen goes down. We'll have a new champ.
Yeah, and a player. I know Remsen St. Mary lost a lot from last year's team, but they're 9-0. Thought they were a team that could make it to the dome. But I'll go to Garrigan. You know, big win for them. And of course, things get a little tougher. And now they face uh, Cam and Nita, but they get to host them. So um,
Yeah.
there's some silver lining there. Um, but rest of it kind of went according to uh, paper a little bit. Winfield Mount Union looking strong with their 34-6 win. Clarksville impressive in their win over Iowa Valley, who had beaten BGM in a track meet the week before. And you mentioned Central City. We talked about some of the injuries that they had the week before. Knew that was going to be kind of a uphill climb for them, not being 100% healthy. And Gladbrook Rhinebeck's a quality team, and that's going to be a really good quarterfinal between Gladbrook Rhinebeck and Clarksville, number 5 versus number 7, with a trip
Yep.
to the semis at stake.
Yeah, and they played fairly late in the regular season, with Clarksville rallying to win that game, given GR its only loss. So rematch there. We talked about the whole alphabet thing, right? Cam and Anita goes on the road to play Algona Garrigan, alphabet wise, but not as you would think. Cam and Anita goes by Cam, which is Cumberland, Anita, Messina, the three towns in it.
Mm-hmm.
Hi or Cam's hyphen Anita, so it starts with C. Algona Garrigan doesn't go by Algona or Garrigan. It goes by Bishop.
Bishop Garrigan.
Bishop Garrigan / Algona. So B beats C, which means Bishop Garrigan gets the host. So you figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
um, anything else you want to touch on? Where are you going to be? You are going to be on the road, headed to I can't remember.
I will be monitoring East Buchanan at St. Ansgar.
Here we go.
Uh, Got to give props to St. Ansgar. It looks like they have a really awesome live feed through a YouTube channel,
Nice.
um, which allows for something like this. So uh, the AD quickly sent me the link to be able to follow along Friday. So looking forward to that and watching 90 minutes of a quarterfinal.
Okay, maybe 2 hours.
Maybe
Maybe
two.
maybe 2 hours. So
Yeah, we joke, but uh,
let's see. I can't even remember where I'm going. Oh, I'm going up to the Monona Friday night for Regina and MFL Marmac. I believe Lindy is, after his state volleyball duties, is heading to Williamsburg, right? For
yep,
Mount Vernon
Marvin
Williamsburg.
Williamsburg. Tully
Um,
Klein would be at Solon
there
for
you go.
the Solon West Delaware game. Um, and then Rob Gray, our Ames correspondent who does all of our Iowa State coverage, he has agreed to go down to Alaman and cover North Polk and Cedar Rapids Xavier in that 4A quarterfinal. So thanks to Rob Gray for
Yep.
helping out there.
Let's do this thing. One more night outside for all of us, and trips to the Unidome and the semifinals are on the line Friday night. TheGazette.com. We'll have game stories. We'll have live running scoreboard. We'll have tweets galore. We'll have live blogs. Just a little bit of everything for you to have you covered here in the quarterfinals. KJ, any
Yep.
parting thoughts?
I'll have some capsules should be posted
Okay.
of our 7 area games, Gazette area games with Gazette area teams. Um, those will be posted, and then I'll have a feature on uh, kind of the group of seniors that have led Solon here. Um, kind of a group that's motivated by leaving a legacy in a football rich tradition. This happens to be uh, the first group that have spent 4 years with Lucas Stanton. They were freshmen when he took
Oh,
over for Kevin
nice.
Miller, so they've kind of grown up in the program together. He knew when they were freshmen this was going to be this was going to be kind of a set the foundation group, and they've retained 29 of 36 football players from that freshman group.
Wow.
And you think with attrition to not having playing time, or maybe focusing on other sports or activities, to retain 29 out of 36, that says a lot about the camaraderie and unity of this group. And they parlayed that into success. I was just looking, I think um, somewhere close to like 31 wins over the last 4 years. Might even be more than that. They haven't finished the season out to the quarterfinal run with a trip to the semis 2 years ago, and they're looking to get back um, if they can overcome Weller on Friday. So look for
Lucas,
that on the Gazette. Tom.
absolutely. Lucas Stanton had an unenviable task, no doubt, to replace a legend like
Yeah,
Kevin Miller, but he's done a hell of a job, and he's a really good guy too. On top of it, so
yeah. I mean, think of the. Not only are you replacing a guy with 4 state titles and done so much for Solon, but a former Solon athlete himself, and then his personality. I'll say it. Kevin Miller, as much of a coach as he was successful, he's an even better person. And you're
yep,
following not only a great coach, but somebody with a great personality. I mean, come on, it was
yeah,
it was tough, and Lucas Stanton has done a great job, um, kind of continuing that tradition.
no question, no question. All right, folks, thanks for joining us on another edition here of the Prep Huddle Prep Podcast on Iowa Prep Sports. I don't know. I flubbed it up. I admit it. So for KJ, this is JJ. We will speak at you, I believe, next week before the semifinals. Thanks, folks.